Hi everyone, my name is Ali Ehsan. I'm a registered migration agent. So today my topic of discussion will be engineering occupations and PR pathways in NSW, South Australia and Western Australia. I will be specifically talking about types of engineering occupations, skills assessment pathways, and I will briefly discuss about current skilled migration options in NSW, South Australia, and WA. So we'll wait for people to join, and we will start, discussing about these parts. Now, just we'll wait for 1 to 2 minutes and more. Let all people to join so they can also listen to for this presentation from beginning. Hi, everyone who has just joined. So our topic for today is engineering occupations and PR pathways in NSW, South Australia, and Western Australia. Now, I will be covering skills assessment, what types of engineering occupations are there on the list, pathways for skills assessment, and then I will also discuss about state and regional nomination requirements in NSW, South Australia, and Western Australia. Now, we'll wait for more attendees to join, and I will start my presentation very soon. So, keep watching the video. So this is what we'll be discussing. Okay, so I believe enough people have joined. So let's get started. Now, before I start, if any one of you has any question related to this topic, please leave us in Facebook comment section, or if you're watching on Instagram or you're watching on other streaming services, do leave us your message or your question there, and I will answer all your questions at the end. Basically, today, I just wanted to discuss engineering occupations with you guys, and here is my introduction. So my name is Ali Ehsan. I'm a registered migration agent at Aussizz Group Bankstown. If you have any questions after this meeting, you can also reach out to me on these numbers. So this is about myself. Now, let's get started. So, first thing is, okay, what sorts of engineering occupations are there on the skilled list? Now, if you see here, I've listed 30 occupations. Now, most of them are here, and all of these occupations are basically on the skilled list, either long-term list, short-term list, or regional occupation list. Now, you'll see first occupations, few occupations are like professional occupations until engineering, professional NEC. Then there is engineering technologist. There are few technician occupations. There are draft person occupations. There are field engineers, network planner, and telecommunication technologist occupations. Now, Engineers Australia divide these occupations into different categories. Now, if you are looking to apply for permanent residency through skilled migration, these are few occupations that you can target. Now, for all of these occupations, assessment criteria can be different. Now, there is a misconception among many applicants that if they have studied in Australia, then only they can get their skills assessment, which is not correct. If someone has studied either from Australia or from overseas, they can get skills assessment in these occupations. Now, most of these occupations, or almost all of them, do not necessarily need work experience. So that is another common myth, that you need skills assessment to get, you need work experience to get skills assessment, which is true in certain cases only, but for most of them, you do not even need employment to get your skills assessment. So coming to the next part, now we are talking about Engineers Australia skills assessment requirements. Now, what sorts of degrees do Engineers Australia assess? First are the degrees. Basically, generally, Engineers Australia has divided it into 3 categories. There are professional engineering occupations for which you need minimum 4 years of bachelor's degree in engineering. Then there is engineering technologist for which you need 3 years or 4 years of degree. They generally fall under engineering technologist category. And third is engineering associate. Now, anyone who has completed advanced diploma or an associate degree can fall under engineering associate category. Now, I'll take a moment here. So, for example, if there is an applicant who has studied Bachelor of, let's say, civil engineering from India, in this case, and that degree is equivalent to Australian bachelor's degree, they can go for all professional occupations, such as civil engineer in this case. However, if someone has completed a degree which was 3 years, let's say Bachelor of Technology or Engineering, or for few countries such as Bangladesh, we have seen that a lot of bachelor degrees are equivalent to are not equal to Australian bachelors. They fall under engineering technologist category, so they can go and get skills assessment as engineering technologists. And then there is last category, which is engineering associates. Anyone who has done advanced diploma or associate degree, generally advanced diploma, can fall under engineering associate category. Now, what are the occupations in engineering associates? So there are occupations such as a civil engineer, draft person, telecommunication network planner. So they are engineering associate categories. Professional engineering categories are such as civil engineers, mechanical engineers, production engineers, other engineering professionals, NEC. They can all go under professional engineers. So this is the difference between different level of studies from Engineers Australia perspective. Now, you also need English language. You have to prove you have competent English. You can prove it by 3 or 4 ways. First is that you have an IELTS, PTE, TOEFL, or and you have competent English, which is equivalent to 6 each in IELTS or 50 each in PTE. Or you have Australian engineering qualification, or master's study, which you completed in Australia for 2 years, or you have a PhD, then you are exempted from this English requirement. Or you are a citizen of a country and you hold a valid passport from eligible country. So 2 requirements are there: having a degree in engineering and having an English, meeting English requirements. Then there are different pathways which you can follow. Now, mainly we divide it into 2 pathways. So there is an accredited pathway, and then there is a non-accredited qualification pathway. Now, for accredited qualifications, so if you have studied from a program which was either it's accredited by Engineers Australia as Australian study, or it falls under any accord, such as Engineers Australia, it is accredited by Washington Accord, Sydney Accord, Dublin Accord, or if it is, as I said, accredited by Engineers Australia and you completed it from Australia. Now, not all qualifications completed from Australia are accredited by Engineers Australia. So you have to keep this in mind. Now, we have seen a lot of queries coming from clients where they did a master's from Australia, but then once they finished it, they got to know that the qualification was not accredited. And in that case, they had to go for second pathway, which is non-accredited qualification. Now, how to check if your qualification is accredited through Engineers Australia? You can head on to their website. You will see list of occupations which are accredited against universities, and make sure your course is accredited. If not, it does not mean that you cannot get assessment. It's just that then you'll have to follow additional pathways. Now, there are many qualifications which are accredited under Washington Accord. And many of clients are not aware that their qualifications are accredited by Washington Accord. Now, the advantage is if your qualification is accredited by Washington Accord, you do not have to go through non-accredited pathway, which means you do not have to write CDR. So in this case, how it works is you have to check if your country is signatory and of Washington Accord, and in each country there are a list of occupations which are accredited under Washington Accord. If your occupation or your qualification was accredited, then you do not have to go for second pathway. Same way there is Sydney Accord and Dublin Accord. Now, first thing that I recommend my clients is to always look for if they have completed a degree from overseas or if they have completed a qualification from Australia, they should check their accreditation first before starting writing CDR. Now, in EA accreditation, there are few occupations which are provisionally accredited. They will also have to write CDR. Okay, so you have to see if your qualification is fully accredited for this pathway. Now, recently we have done cases where applicants completed engineering, software engineering, or a Bachelor of Engineering, Software Engineering degrees from overseas, and even they were falling into Washington Accord, and they were able to get skills assessment directly through Engineers Australia without having to go for CDR option. Okay, so it's always best to check your options, check your qualification before choosing a right pathway. Then non-accredited qualifications are any other qualifications which are not accredited, but they are engineering qualifications. In this case scenario, you have to write CDR, which is basically competency demonstration report. Now, in this pathway, you have to submit 3 career episodes, and you have to write summary statement and continuing professional development, which is CPD. Now, in CDR, basically, you prove that you have all the competencies for a professional engineer or for an engineering technologist, depending on what occupation you are nominating. Now, we have again come across many cases where applicants, they do not have all the projects. So they have not done those projects during their study, but they completed those projects while they were working. So if you have done an internship, or you were, let's say, working somewhere, let's say you have 1 year experience or 6 months experience, or you have internship, you can use projects from there as well. So it's not necessary to provide projects from your qualification only or from your employment only. Now, there might be applicants who do not have any employment, but they can still, if they are able to write 3 projects or CDR, they can still get their skills assessment under non-accredited qualification pathway, which is CDR. Now, you also have to write a summary statement with this, where you will basically explain you have that, again, referring to same competencies, and CPD, which is continuing professional development. Okay. Now, these 2 are the pathways for Engineers Australia, where using which you can get your skills assessment through Engineers Australia. Now, skilled visa subclasses, there are, so once you have skill assessment, these are the occupations that you can look into for skilled visas. Now, skilled independent visa is there, subclass 189, then skilled nominated state-sponsored visa, subclass 190, and then there is skilled regional visa, which is subclass 491, and then there is 491 family-sponsored visa as well. Now, they are all skilled visas. Now, if I go into depth and see what are the basic criteria for all visas, now for 189, you must have an occupation which is in the long-term list, also known as MLTSSL occupation list. If your occupation is there, you need a positive skills assessment, which we discussed on last page. You need to have minimum 65 points. And after the, you must be under 45. You must, if you are 45 or above, you are not eligible for any skilled visa category, including 189, 190, or 491. Now, if you have minimum 65 points, you can submit expression of interest. And then applicants are ranked on the basis of their points. Now, if you have 65 points and you submit your expression of interest, even though you have less chances, I will recommend you to submit expression of interest because at least you get into the queue. Now, a lot of applicants, they wait until they reach 80, 85 points or 90 points to lodge EOI, which is not the right approach. If you have minimum points, you should be in the queue and you can always update your EOI if you get more points. So for example, if you have proficient English as of today and you are reaching 65 points, you can submit your expression of interest for 189 visa. And at the same time, you can keep on working on increasing your points. And once you have more points, you can always update your expression of interest. Now, this is the best approach because you will not miss out any possible opportunity if department invites applicants at 65 points for your occupation. Then for 190 visa, your occupation can be in the long-term list or short-term occupation list. But in this, the difference is that you have to apply through state. So having occupation just on long-term or short-term list does not mean that every state can sponsor that occupation. Now, in this case scenario, we have to see each and every state nomination criteria. If your occupation is on that state list, then you can proceed with 190 visa with that particular state. Now, in this, second basic requirement is that you must hold eligible skills assessment, which is there in all skill visas, as I mentioned, and you need minimum 60 points of yourself. State gives you 5 points. So someone who is reaching 60 points and they lodge EOI for 190, 5 points will get added and they will be able to submit expression of interest for at 65 points. Then if a candidate is eligible or not, that will be determined by state. Now, for example, in NSW, if your occupation is available, NSW will have different criteria to assess you. They rank applicants on the basis of points. Now, at the same time, if your occupation is available in Western Australia, their ranking way can be different to NSW. So we also have to see how states are ranking your occupation as well. Then third visa category is 491, which is regional sponsored visa. Now, in this, basically, your occupation has to be either in long-term, short-term, or regional, and then we have to see the region which is sponsoring your occupation. Now, you must hold valid skills assessment. Now, the difference is you do not need high points like 189 or 190. You can be eligible with lower points as well. Now, minimum points requirement is 50, and you get 15 points from region. Again, in this, you have to meet regional criteria as well. So if a regional area is having certain requirements, you have to meet those as well, in addition to meeting minimum eligibility criteria. Now, 491 family sponsored stream is so generally that is not an occupation which is discussed mostly. So in 491 family sponsored stream, first thing is your occupation has to be in the long-term list. Second, you must have a relative who is usual resident of a regional area of Australia. They do not have to be a resident of regional area of a state where you are living. So for example, you are living in Sydney and your relative can be living in regional area of Victoria, let's say Geelong. Okay, so in that, there is no requirement for you to be living in same region or region to be eligible for 491. Now, in that as well, you have to lodge expression of interest and government sends out invitation. Now, those invitations do not come from states or regions. Those invitations are directly from federal government. So whenever 189 rounds are conducted, 491 family sponsored rounds are conducted as well. Okay. Now, I believe all of you are clear on how the visa process works for all of these subclasses. Now, coming towards point test system. So once you have skills assessment, you know your visa, and you want to calculate your points. So here are points. Now, few of the points might not be here because it will be too much information. But then I've written, some basic points which you can claim. So as you can see, first, you can claim points from your age. If you are between 25 to 32, you get maximum points, which is 30. If you are between 33 to 39, you get 25 points. Now, I get asked this question many times that if I have turned 32, will I lose 5 points? Answer is no. You will lose 5 points the day you turn 33, not the day you turn 32. So on the day when you turn 33, you are losing 5 points. So many people, they lose hope just because they have turned 32. They assume that they have lost points, which is not correct. Same way, you cannot gain points unless and until you turn 25. Okay. So make sure that you are aware, and if you are having any problem in calculating this, you can reach out to us and we can help you with this. But this is how point calculation works for age category. Now for English, you need to have proficient English for 7 each. So proficient English, which is 7 each, equivalent in IELTS or equivalent, like it can be PTE. Okay, TOEFL IBT department stopped recently. Then if you have superior English, you need to have, you can get 20 points, but that is equivalent to 8 in IELTS or other examinations, equivalent score. Now, you need minimum competent English to apply for any skilled visa. If you do not have competent English, you cannot apply for visa. These are just for points. So if you have 7, you can get 10 points. If you have superior English, which is 8 each equivalent, you can get 20 points. Then work experience is very important. Now, with work experience, you need to have minimum 20 hours per week experience. Again, there is a confusion. People think that they need full-time work experience to claim points, which is wrong. If you have minimum 20 hours per week of employment and it was in highly relevant field or closely related occupation, you can claim points. Now, closely related occupation is if your unit group is same. So for example, if someone is working as an accountant and they have skills assessment as management accountant, they can claim points. But someone who has skills assessment as accountant and working as bookkeeper cannot claim points because that is not a closely related occupation. At the same time, with engineering, so someone can have in this case, so let's say if someone has skills assessment as mechanical engineer, but they are working as production engineer or industrial engineer, they can claim points because they are all closely related occupations. Or civil engineers, and if they are working as structural engineer or geotechnical engineer, they are closely related occupations. So you have to keep this in mind. If someone is working in different unit group, that is not considered closely related occupation. There can be cases where that occupation can still be considered relevant depending on duties. Now, if you are working in Australia and you work for at least 1 year, you can have 5 points. You can have maximum of 20 if you are working in Australia for more than 8 years. If you are working outside Australia and you work for 1 year, you get 5 points. 5 year up, 3 to, if you are working for 3 to, so there is a mistake here. So if you are working outside Australia and it's 3 years plus, you get 5 points. If it is 5 years plus, you get 10 points. So this is how point system works. Now, for your qualification, you can have, bachelor gives you 15 points, or master gives you 15 points, PhD give you 20 points. Now, if you have a research degree and your occupation is master's or PhD, and it falls under specialized qualification, you can have 10 extra points. So those are generally STEM qualifications. So such as engineering. So let's say if someone has done PhD in engineering, they can claim extra 10 points. Or someone has done Masters of Research in Australia, 2 years, and their field was engineering related, they can claim 10 extra points. No, someone who is studying and living in regional can claim 5 extra points. Doing NATI, which is NATI CCL, that can give you 5 extra points. Professional year program can give you 5 points. State sponsorship 190 gives you 5 points. Regional sponsorship gives you 15 points. If you have a spouse, you can get up to 10 points from your spouse if you get their skills assessment and they have competent English. If you do not have spouse and you are single applicant, you can claim 10 points from there. Okay, so basically these are the types of points that you can claim based on your profile. Now, I will discuss only a few state requirements because, there have been recent updates So I just want to give you an idea what those recent updates are. We are also doing live sessions in coming weeks where we'll discuss about all states, and we'll be also conducting live session as soon as any state requirements are out. Now, in this case, Western Australia, they have recently announced their state nomination criteria for this financial year. Now, you need to have an occupation on Schedule 1 or Schedule 2 list, or there is a graduate occupation list. Now, if your qualification, if your occupation is in Schedule 1 list, you need to have 1 year Australian experience or 3 years overseas experience, which was again reduced to 1 year last year. So it's 1 year overseas or in Australia. You can combine that experience and apply under Schedule 1. For Schedule 2, there is no work experience requirement. Now, again, your occupation has to be in Schedule 2 list. However, if you're going for subclass 190, you need to have 6 months full-time employment contract in an eligible occupation if you are applying under Schedule 2. That applies to 190 visa only. And if you're applying under Schedule 2 or so you need a contract in either case if you're going for this option. The only exception in 190 is where your occupation is in the industry. So they have WA has recently defined that if you are working in construction or building industry, basically, then you do not need employment contract. Now, employment contract requirement applies to Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 both, but it's for 6 months. Now, if you are a graduate of Western Australia, then you do not have to basically get offer of, you do not need employment contract, and you can directly get 190 as well. But the requirement is that you must have completed 2 years of study in Western Australia. And again, almost all engineering occupations are on the list, a graduate occupation list of WA. For 491, the difference is basically number one is occupation list can be different for Schedule 1 or Schedule 2. You need to meet proficient or competent English. Again, that depends on the points, but I've written proficient English because generally that gives you extra points, but it's not mandatory. Again, for Schedule 1, you need to have 1 year experience or in Australia or overseas. Again, it's not 3 years, it's 1 year. And for Schedule 2 occupations, there is no, or Schedule 1 occupation, there is no job. So again, there are two things. So you do not need prior work experience for Schedule 2, and you do not need a job contract if you are going for 491 in this case. So 491 gives you more options where you do not need to provide job contract, you do not need to prove previous experience, while in 190, you have to provide job contract unless and until you are going under graduate stream. Now, NSW basically divides its state in this way. So there are regional areas and there are RDAs. So basically regional areas, NSW has divided in RDAs. So there are a number of RDAs which you can see at the bottom left of the screen. Now, these RDAs have their own nomination programs as well for subclass 491. But for 190, all state is considered as one state. So it doesn't matter where you are living for subclass 190. But for 491, there can be different options based on different RDAs list, occupation lists. Now, for eligibility of NSW, so just to let you know that this eligibility is based on what requirements were there previously. This is not an updated list or updated requirements, but I just wanted to briefly tell all my clients what these requirements were. So you have an idea of upcoming requirements. Now, for 190, you must be living in NSW for 6 months. Your occupation has to be on 190 occupation list, and you must be invited to apply. Now, almost all engineering occupations were in NSW's list last financial year, except mechanical engineer, which was not there, but then department added that occupation later on. Now, how NSW assess applicants, that is based on point score, English proficiency, and then years of skilled experience that person has. Now, years of skilled experience is currently in last year department, NSW did not give much weightage to it, but we have seen over the period of time that this is something that NSW can give preference to. So if you have experience, that can add to your profile. Then for 491, there were basically two different pathways. Pathway 1, in which stream A was there, and pathway 2, where there was direct pathway by invitation. Now, in pathway 1, stream A and B, department later on, NSW government, they later on divided into two streams, stream A and B. Now, again, many people got confused in these. Now, stream A is specifically for applicants who are working and living in regional area for at least 12 months. However, for stream B, there was no such requirement of either living in regional NSW or working in regional NSW, but the only requirement for NSW 491 is that you must be living in NSW or overseas for 3 months. Now, engineering occupations, we received invite even at 50 points from Australia and from overseas with for applicants whose occupations were there in stream B. Now, if you missed this opportunity in last financial year, you can keep your eye on new lists. So if new lists are announced and requirements are same, you can directly apply under stream B if your occupation is on the list and you have minimum 50 points. Pathway 2 is where you submit expression of interest and you wait for invite from NSW government. Okay. So this is how NSW looked like last financial year, which just ended on 30th June. For this year, we are yet to receive new updates, but what we have seen is NSW always have RDA related options. They have different streams related to work or living. So if you are living in NSW, I will recommend you to stay here for now and wait for NSW to release its requirement before you make final decision. Then South Australia quickly. So for 190, generally your occupation has to be on the list for relevant visa. You must have experience. Now that experience is different for Greater Adelaide or Outer Regional of South Australia. Generally for engineering occupation 190, you need 12 to 18 months of experience depending on where you are working, or sometimes 6 months if you are working in Outer Regional. Now again, this varies across occupations. It's not same for all occupations. Then for 491, the difference is that still you need experience, but you need lesser experience. Now, South Australia is offering 491 pathway for people who work in outer region for 6 months in any field. That work has to be minimum 30 hours per week, has to be in outer regional of South Australia. You can have any occupation and you'll still be able to apply. For engineering, still same rule will apply. But let's say if you are engineer and you move to outer regional of South Australia, you get a job at a cafe, or you get a job as a truck driver, for example, and you work for 6 months, you can apply for 491 based on that as well. You do not necessarily need job in your own field if you are working in outer regional of South Australia. But if you have job in your field, you might consider applying for 190 after 6 months to 1 year. For graduate pathway, again, there are certain exemptions available depending on your occupation. There can be exemptions based on, if your GPA is higher, your work experience requirement will be lesser as compared to someone who has not studied. So South Australia do offer this option as well. Now, as South Australia is yet to, they have requirements, they have kept same as of now. They are yet to announce their occupation list. And with new occupation list, they might announce new requirements. So we'll have to wait for those. But generally, all engineering occupations that what we have seen are on South Australia list. So if you are engineer, South Australia is a good option, depending on if you have job in your nominated occupation or not, and depending on where you are living, Adelaide or outer region. So this is pretty much all related to engineering. I've covered these states depending, because of the time constraint that we have. and we are also waiting for most of the states to announce their requirements. Now, once they announce their requirements, as I mentioned earlier, we'll be doing further live sessions. We'll explain you everything in detail. This session was mostly to give you an idea about engineering occupation, skills assessment pathway, and types of options that you can look on. Now, every state and region can still have some additional requirements, which might not be discussed in this session, because, you know, whenever we are assessing cases, there can be exceptions, there can be different rules. So it's always best to reach out to your nearest Aussizz Group branch so you can get customized advice related to your case. So now I'll take questions from all of you. So Sarah has asked, when is the SA open? So look, we are expecting all the states to open very soon. The reason is because recently we have seen Western Australia announced its requirements. They have been allocated seats. They have also sent out invitations as well. Then we are getting news from ACT and a few other states that, you know, they might have received allocation. Now, unless and until it's official, we cannot disclose it. But then, you know, there are updates coming from all the states. So we expect all the states to open in coming weeks. So keep, you know, following us on social media pages, because we will, as soon as we have an update, we will post it there. So, Harshi, you mentioned that you have got 90 points. You are accountant, you are living in Victoria, and you are not working currently. What are your chances for subclass 189? Now, with 189, there is no requirement or there is no preference given to applicants on the basis of their work experience. You get preference on the basis of your points. Now, and your occupation. Now, if your occupation is in the skill list and your points are high, you can expect invitation. Now, for accountants specifically, I advise all my clients to get as high points as possible and also do multiple skills assessment, which allows you to lodge multiple EOIs, and you can have you can expect invitation from external auditor or management accountant or taxation or accountant that increase your options basically. Okay, so I'm just taking questions from other sources as well. Okay. So someone has asked, can we get skills assessment and apply for PR without job experience? Yes, you can apply for PR. You can also get skills assessment, especially if you are an engineer, you have a degree, bachelor degree or master's, you know, generally bachelor degree, you can get your skills assessment without work experience as well. And you can lodge expression of interest and you can be invited without that. So someone has asked that what is other option for 485 holder if not getting job for skills assessment? Now, I'm not sure which occupation are you specifically talking about, but if you are holding a 485 visa or you are holding a student visa, you can still get skills assessment through Engineers Australia without job. If you're talking about other assessing authority, then I'll have to check. Now, someone has asked that they need information on diesel mechanic, diesel mechanic trade skills. Okay, give me 1 minute. I think this question is not clear. Okay, I'll get back to this one. So, okay. So I've got a question from Muhammad. He is asking that Engineers Australia skills assessment is valid for 2 years or 3 years. So Muhammad, it's valid for 3 years. And if it gets expired, you should not be worried. You should not be worried about it because you can renew it through Engineers Australia, even if it gets expired. So it's valid for 3 years. A question from Bikash. Okay, so you have given your case, so I'll have to read it. So you have done MBA and you have done Bachelor of Mechanical Engineering. You have done Diploma of Marine Engineering, which was long time back. Your age is 48, so you are not eligible for skilled visas, basically. So you cannot apply for all the skilled visas that I have discussed. But yes, if you have, certain level of experience, which was, and you think you can qualify as a global talent, in global talent category, that is something that you can look for. However, normal skilled visa, you cannot go for based on this profile. Junaid has asked that about processing times for NSW 190. So see, visa processing times are varying from case to case. We have seen few grants from January, February, but at the same time, we have not received grants for applications that were lodged in December or even October, November as well. So it depends on case to case, but generally you can expect 8 to 10 months depending on current speed, but which can change anytime. So someone has asked more updates as engineering technologist. Now that question is not clear. Okay, so I've got clarity on another question. So what if 485 holder is not getting job for skills assessment for chef? Now, if you are a 485 holder and you did trade course, let's say you did certificate 4 in commercial cookery, and no, you cannot get job to complete job ready program, then unfortunately you'll not be able to go for chef occupation unless and until you complete either 1 year job ready program or you work for 3 years. Now, in this case, you should choose an alternative option. You should study something else which can give you skills assessment without employment. But I will highly recommend you to look for a job. Start with anything, but try to get job as a chef. Now, 189 grants, so someone has asked when 189 grants will happen for non-priority occupations. Again, there are no timelines. It depends on case to case. Applicants who lodged application somewhere in October, November are still waiting. Some applicants who lodged in January or February have also received invite grants. So there are no specific dates. If you have lodged visa, you can always follow, published timelines on Department of Home Affairs website, which can change. But this is how the process is going right now. So I've got a question that I've lodged EOI with 64 points. I believe it will be 65 points, if I'm not wrong. Electrical engineer. Should you expect 190 or go for exam again? Are you so if you're talking about English points or EOI points, I'm not sure, but it depends on which state are you in. If you have 65 points, I don't consider them high points. So you should definitely keep on trying for high score, because with 65 points, it will become really hard to get invitation from most of the states. But yes, few states, it might still be possible. So Mahesh has asked that for WA 190 nomination, job offer is required. So from offshore, how can we secure it, and how employer will consider for candidature if we are offshore? Look, so, this is something you have to, work on. But let's say if you do not have option or you cannot get job offer, then you can consider 491 visa option there, or you can consider 190 option in NSW, because NSW does not ask job, job contract, or even Victoria. Victoria does not request for job contract as well. So look for alternate option rather than, looking for one option. That's the solution in this case. So someone has asked that their score is 70 and they lodged EOI for all states. Can they expect 491, 85 points or 190? No, that's very open-ended question, guys, because 70 points can be enough in NSW as well. It can be enough in any state for 491. Okay. And 70 points is also enough for 190 in most of the states, depending on your occupation, depending on states where you are living in. For example, someone who has 70 points of their own, they have 5 points from state and they are a nurse. They can get invite from everywhere. But if they are an engineer, then they have to look into trends. Now, for engineers, it will become more competitive with 70 points. So I will generally recommend either to increase 10 points or go for 491, whichever you get first. Yes, lodging EOI in multiple states is always a good option if you are eligible. But you have to check eligibility. Let's say if you are lodging EOI for Victoria and you are living in NSW, you are not even eligible to apply there. So that's just waste of time. Okay. But then there can be states where you can be eligible. Let's say, for example, if you're in NSW and you are lodging EOI for WA, you can do that. But still, WA will give preference to applicants who are living in WA. So a client has asked that their wife finished study in agriculture science and they don't have job. Now, for agriculture science, generally there are two occupations, agriculture scientist and agriculture consultant. For both, you need work experience. If you do not have work experience, you cannot get skills assessment in these two occupations. You'll have to look for other study options or other occupations other than agriculture to get your skills assessment. That's the only way. Jigar, I've already answered that. There are no updates yet on SA. But as looking into recent trends, we can expect it very soon. So Vishal, for Queensland, again, for this year, requirements are not there yet. Last year for accountants, Queensland was pretty strict. They had limited number of seats. They had additional requirements for accountants, such as, limited seats, your type of employment that you are doing, and then their basic requirements are anyways there, like minimum points, etc. So we'll have to see how this year requirements come in. If they give some relaxation to accountants, then we can expect invitation at lower points, or otherwise you can expect to have higher, like 90 or plus points at least. Okay, so I believe I've answered all the questions. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining. You can reach out to nearest Aussizz branch to get answers to further questions, or you can always reach out to me through my email address or my phone number. My name is Ali Ehsan, and I'm a registered migration agent. So you can find my details, or you can always reach out to me on details provided in this meeting at first page. So thank you everyone for joining once again. I believe this session was helpful. We'll be doing more sessions like this, where we'll be discussing state requirements. So stay tuned for upcoming weeks, and also stay tuned. We will also do live sessions as soon as we receive requirements from any other state. So if you're following us, you've subscribed us, you'll get update related to new sessions. Thank you, everyone.